Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. And if you've watched my previous videos, which I can comment or I can put down below in the info box, we not recently actually, we moved to Toronto, Canada, and I wanted to kind of like just share a little bit more about our insights here. So or since it's gonna be like a year, we moved here back in March 2018, and it's been really good. But I think for those people who are looking to move to Canada and wanted to get a little bit more info, I'm gonna be telling you some of the things that I wish I knew before kind of like coming in here. Prior to moving to Canada, I haven't really been here. I've never kind of like visited the country. We just kind of like took the plunge and decided that we want to move here. And all of the things that I knew about Toronto or the Canada in whole was everything I kind of read through internet, watched through vloggers who are currently living here, and YouTube. So I hope that this video could be a little bit more informational for those people trying to come in here. And please, disclaimer, these are all things that I in my opinion, it could be different for some people. I think this is just my experience, and I think, just a disclaimer as well, that I kind of compare it to the countries that I've lived in for the past 10 years, which is like Japan and Singapore. So primarily, whatever I think about Toronto is kind of like a comparison or direct comparison to those two countries. So yeah, I kind of like have everything in my iPad, and I'm just gonna go through like the first thing that I wish I honestly knew before kind of like coming in here, which is taxes. So for those people who have lived, or expats who have lived in Singapore, you should know that taxes there are not high. Salaries are high, but you pay quite reasonable taxes, or even lower taxes, I would say. And taxes here in Canada, so it's different, I think, in like different provinces. So we're in Toronto, which is Ontario, and kind of like how they do their income taxes are based on income bracket. So for example, for those people who kind of they would have like a bracket. So let's say 45,000 to 55,000, 55 to 75, and then 85 to whatever. So the more you earn, the more taxes you actually pay. So before we actually moved here, we kind of know that taxes are gonna be high, but I guess it's just a matter of like really being able to see through your own eyes. And seeing my first paycheck for the first time, I was so shocked. I even went to our HR department and kind of like asked them, is this real? I was just so baffled at how much taxes I have to pay. It's just because we lived in Singapore and Japan, it's not much, I would say. So like coming in here, it was like just a huge shock for us, especially for myself when I looked at my paycheck and I'm like, this is crazy. But yeah, so for those people who are trying to kind of like move here, just bear it in mind that taxes are gonna be higher here in Canada. So yes. So second thing, this is, I think, a huge debate. Disclaimer as well, this is from what I know and from my experience. So when we moved to Canada, one of the biggest reasons that we wanted to move here is because we know that there are really great healthcare benefits here. But I think that healthcare is publicly funded, but not everything is free. I've learned it the hard way. I guess it's kind of like a lack of research in our own end as well. That's entirely our fault. We kind of like just assume, oh, those are the things that we've heard either from friends, acquaintances, or just hearsay that in Canada healthcare is free. So not everything is free. I would can safely say that like the whenever you go to the doctor, I think the consultation is free, but in terms of like getting the medicines, you don't get that for free. So in every provinces, they would give you kind of like healthcare card, so that's what you give to your doctor, and then when you have to pay, you still have to pay for the medicine. So just bear that in mind as well, that not everything is free. I guess one thing that's really good about here in terms of like the healthcare is that when you need to go to an emergency and you would need to go to like an ambulance or whatever it is, it's free in here. So that's like a really great pro. But I guess when you're just going for a normal checkup or whatever it is, you still have to pay for it, so it's not entirely free. But one thing really good about it is that recently I had the flu shot, I think 2 months ago. So if I were in Singapore or whatnot, I would have to pay for that for like maybe $150. And even like when I have to go to like a certain clinics, other stuffs are free for you, but in Singapore it's not. So those are the kind of things, and I think that it's still a pro, but I think it's just you have to know that not everything is free. All right, the third one, I guess it's just a minor one, but it's about tipping. Well, again, like living in Asia, we didn't really have to tip, not that much compared to here. Of course, we all knew about all these things, but it's just sometimes I kind of feel like I'm not really kind of used to it yet. So for example, you would go to restaurants. I do understand that you have to tip people for it. That's absolutely fine. But some stores here, like in Toronto that I kind of like went to, they would ask for tips when you pay through your debit card. So an example would be just like those like go to restaurants where you don't have to sit down and they would serve you. You will have to go to the counter, get your food, pay, and done. But then they would still ask for tips. So whenever you pay for your food, you will get, or you pay by debit credit, and then you'll get the machine. One thing I really didn't like is that they would have like presets of percentage, and some restaurants would even go as high as like 18% or 25%, which I feel like is ridiculous. I am not against tipping, but I feel like that's too much. Like for us, we were new here. I was like, oh, is this like the only percentage that we can choose? So at the time we were just kind of like shy, so okay, fine, we're just gonna give 15%. And you know, if you count that in a year, if you go out restaurants often, you would have to pay for a lot of money. So I think that's one thing that we wish we knew before coming in here, but I guess that's part of the culture. That's just how it is. But just, you know, keep that in mind as well, that you have to get into the habit of tipping. So yeah, I guess the last one would just be, I wouldn't say it's minor, but I wish we knew as well. It's about Canadian banking. So when we first moved here, we opened an account through one of the major bank accounts here in Canada, and I didn't know, or we thought that every Canadian bank you have to kind of like pay for a monthly fee. So yeah, so we opened in a bank account. I thought that, you know, every bank account you would need to pay like a monthly fee, but for some banks you don't have to. So an example would be for TD, as long as you have like $4,000 in your savings account or checking account, I'm not entirely sure, I think so, yes, you don't have to pay, or they would waive your monthly fee, which is like $15. So that's pretty good. I would highly suggest open with TD when you come in here, or if you move to Toronto or Canada in general, I would say. So yeah, and another thing I guess in terms of like the banking is that the fees. So they charge a lot of fees. Like an example would be just, you know, paying through your savings account. So back in Singapore and Japan, I don't remember that I have to pay for a fee whenever I get money from there, but here in Canada, whenever you use your savings account to pay through debit or you withdraw in there, you have to pay a fee unless you kind of like moved your savings or the money from your savings account through your checking account, and you will do the transactions into your checking account, that's fine. But if you do the transaction straight or directly from your savings account, you would have to incur a fee. So I guess that was last year where I was kind of like shocked. I had to pay, I guess, $25 to $30. I can't remember. And I was like, what is this fee? I was supposed to get like you know, waived because of the minimum amount that I have to have in the account, and then they would waive it for me. And then I called them and they say, oh, because you kind of like used your savings account to pay for something. And I kind of felt that was a little bit ridiculous. But I guess that's kind of the policy in here, so that's something that you have to keep in mind, as well as that the Canadian banking or banking here in general, they would have quite a lot of fees, and you have to really kind of like dig through, because some of the banks, I don't think they do a really great job in terms of like explaining to you what are the exact fees. And I think it's for us as well to actually, you know, ask all those when you go into the bank. But yeah, well, those are the things I wish I knew, or I wish we knew before coming to Canada. Yeah, let me know if you have any questions or any suggestions or whatever it is in terms of like your experience coming in here, or for people who are kind of interested to know a little bit more information specifically in Toronto or Ontario in general. I'll be happy to kind of like help you guys in there, you know, for new immigrants or for expats that's moving in here. If there's anything you would like to know about Toronto, please leave a comment below. I'll be happy to kind of like help you guys. If there's any topics about living in Canada, whatever it is that you would like me to kind of like share with you and elaborate a little bit more, I'll be happy to just share it down below. And I'll also kind of like links a couple of things that I think are helpful when moving in here. And yeah, well, I'll see you guys next time, and talk soon. Bye.